At 5-3, the Steelers are the 34th team since 1933, when rushing and receiving yards were first tracked, to be outgained in each of their first 8 games of a season. They're the only one of those teams who had a winning record, per J McTigue 85 on Twitter. The Steelers are also the only team this season to be outgained in every game, and they've been outgained by negative 790 yards, second worst to only the Broncos at negative 830. This is coming from Adam Schefter on Twitter, and we have a winning record after all of that. Huh?
Here we go, Steelers, here we go. Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Steel Nation. I'm your host, Brian, and Thursday's game was a game of all time. I would say it was a good Thursday night game, but holy crap, was it intense. I mean, to start off with, can we talk about the number of flags? Like, holy crap. The last time I checked, we had like 12 flags in the first half, 9 in the first quarter, which I think might be the most flags in a game so far this season. And what's crazier is the statistic that I was able to put together in the Titans' opening drive. Okay, it was an opening drive for the Titans that ended in a field goal. They got 45 yards of offense off of nothing but penalties. Now, mind you, those penalties were good. They were good calls. Our team just wasn't doing good, except for the first one, though. I will say the first one was just a bullcrap roughing the passer call, which, you know, they've been calling nonstop recently, which at this point I'm not too worried about. But 45 yards of offense in that first drive only for the Titans is insane. And then the flags just kept on flying. And I'm starting to wonder if it's because I decided to wear a ref costume to the stream last night. Because we streamed on Thursday. I streamed the game. It was a blast. If you guys have not checked out any of my game streams yet, please go ahead and do so. I stream every Steelers game so far. If there can be one that I'm missing, then I will let you all know either in a community post beforehand or in a video such as this one beforehand. But the game was a lot of fun. It was Thursday night. It was prime time, which means that I was screaming at the top of my lungs until about midnight, which I'm sure upset my family, but they didn't say anything. So we're good in that regard. And luckily, we don't have too many primetime games going forward due to the nature of the fact that we aren't great as a team. But we won last night, which is a big relief. That puts us at 5-3 on the season. And we play the Packers next week, and so that, I feel like, should be at least somewhat of an easy victory. But it wasn't a blowout win. It was a very tough, it was a slugfest game. There's a lot of back and forth, and it literally came down to a last-second interception to give us the win. So it was a 3rd and 5 from Tennessee's 19-yard line. Will Levis passed deep down the middle, with the intended target being Jay Weil, although it was intercepted in the end zone by K. Alexander at the Pittsburgh -1. It was taken down for a touchback, and the game was over. The Pittsburgh Steelers had won 16-20. And everybody went home happy, well, except for the Titans fans, but, you know, that's the nature of being a Titans fan. I want to start off by talking about the quarterback, specifically Will Levis, because he did fairly well in his second ever start, especially against the Steelers defense. I thought he did really well. Of course, you have Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins as receivers and as targets. So he really doesn't have too much to worry about on the offensive side of things, but he didn't have nearly as many touchdowns as he did last week, which is just the nature of a Steelers game. Like, either they absolutely blow you out, or it's a slugfest all the way up until the end, and that's about how this game came down to. We had like 2 touchdowns for the Steelers. Deontay Johnson got his first touchdown since 2021. That is a very long streak for a team with a winning record in 2022. And so he finally gets his first receiving touchdown, first touchdown in general in 2023, his second week back on the team, and it was incredible to watch. I'm really happy for the guy. George Pickens didn't get a touchdown, even though he should have, but it has nothing to do with the officiating and more to do with the fact that he didn't get his toes down in time. The one man on our team who you would expect to be able to toe tap the best because he's shown that he can, just was not able to get his toes down, and that ended up with the game with the touchdown being reversed, and he didn't get it. So that one was on him. And throughout the rest of the game, George Pickens, he was really not looking the best. Like, if we look over here at his statistics, if I can find them, here we go, box scores. We go down here. George Pickens, he had the lowest number of yards of any receiver on the team with -1. He was targeted 5 times, and he only caught 2 of those targets. I don't think they count the out-of-bounds touchdown that he could have had. But he's 5 for 2 in the game, and he's got -1 yard, which is not good, like, at all. He's at the bottom. He is below Boykin. Miles Boykin, I think is his full name. Miles Boykin. He had 1 catch on 1 target for 6 yards. Literally have never heard this guy's name in my life, and yet here he is catching more footballs for more, or a football for more yardage than who is supposed to be the best receiver on our team. And George Pickens, throughout the season, has been saying a lot. He's been talking a lot, saying he's not getting targets. He's a really good player, but he's not getting the ball enough. He got 5 attempts to get the ball today. He made 2 of them and didn't get any yardage. So I think he's a really good football player. I think he's going to do really well in the future. And hopefully he does really well going forward. But his performance these past couple of weeks has not been good. Sure, he had that 1 touchdown catch a couple of weeks ago against the Rams. But aside from that, last week, barely anything. He did barely anything against the Jaguars. And this week, he did less than nothing. He did worse than you could possibly do. He got -1 yard. He didn't add to the offense at all today, aside from like running routes, which sucks because like he's always like talking about how he's the best receiver in football, and yet he can't exceed any sort of expectation. Underdog Fantasy is a perfect example. They put George Pickens. He was their gimme player of the week. They said he's going to make at least 0.5 or half a point for the Underdog Fantasy, and so you pick him, you're automatically going to win with him. They had to rescind that after the game because he didn't even get half a point. In Underdog Fantasy, he got negative yards. So they had to rescind that everybody who picked him for their pick'ems because he just didn't provide anything to the game. In fact, he took away from it. So I really hope he starts doing better. In fact, Darnell Washington as well. He had 1 target, 1 reception, 7 yards. The rookie tight end, he finally got some time to shine. He was able to get 7 yards, which is really, really good for your first catch. But then, of course, you go up to Deontay Johnson, who was just he did really well this game. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. He had a really, really good game today. And, in fact, he wasn't just the leading catcher on our team. He was the leading catcher on both teams. So he did really well. And I am very, very excited about having Deontay Johnson back. I am stoked to see that he's not running backwards this season like he was last season. And I'm excited to see where he goes going forward in the season. Now, if we move on to rushing yards, Jaylen Warren is just showing, and he's proving my point that he should be running back 1. With 11 attempted runs, he has 88 yards, which is a ton of yards, especially when you compare him to Najee Harris, who on 16 runs had 69 yards. 16 runs, 69 yards. Let me do a little bit of math here, and I can tell you exactly how many yards per carry that is in comparison to Jaylen Warren, because for some reason it ain't showing me. Alright, so after doing the math, which is very simple, it's literally taking the total number of yards they gained divided by the number of attempts they had, Najee Harris had a total of 4.3 yards per carry, which is better than it was last week. But when you compare it to Jaylen Warren's 8 yards per carry, that's not good. I mean, Jaylen Warren had some of the best runs last night that we have seen of him. There were several occasions where all he had to do was break one more tackle and he would have been home free to run for the end zone. And I'm not blaming him for not breaking the tackles, because a lot of them, they just got his ankles and tripped him up. But 8 yards per carry, and he is not our running back one yet, is insane. And the fact that we're still entrusting Najee Harris with the ball more often than Jaylen Warren is ridiculous. Now, of course, this whole system, I like it. I like the fact that we have 2 running backs, so we're not constantly burning one of them out. However, if you're going to have the 2 running backs, you would want them to act the same. Run the same, get about the same stuff. Or if one of them's better, use them more. But they're not. They're using Najee more than Jaylen, even though Jaylen is, in all accounts, better. The only thing that Jaylen didn't have this game was a rushing touchdown, because when they made it to the goal line, after using Jaylen Warren to get there, they gave it to Najee to get the touchdown. So Jaylen, in my opinion, got completely screwed out of a touchdown because they decided that Najee should take the final run into the end zone instead of the guy who got them to the end zone to begin with. And it's just frustrating to me because I feel like Jaylen deserved that touchdown more than Najee did. However, it's a Steelers touchdown. I'm not too worried. And as Najee keeps to getting better, I'm sure we'll get to a point where they're one in the same almost, and we will stop having issues like this with Najee. But you compare all of this with Derrick Henry, who on 17 attempts at 75 yards, that is less yards on more attempts than than just Jaylen Warren. Sorry, Najee Harris had less yards and less attempts. We had the better running game of the 2, which is insane, because then they also had Tyler Spears, who on 5 attempts had 18 yards, which really, it's not all that relevant. We also had Calvin Austin, the third run on 2 attempts and got 10 yards. That's 5 yards per carry. And Kenny Pickett did, or at least tried to do a run of his own, but he didn't even make it back to the line of scrimmage, so I'm not too worried about any of that. Our running game was really good. If we look at the total overall stats for the team so far, we are, as the tweet said in the beginning of the episode, we were outgunned on offense completely. The Titans scored 340 points of offense. That's split up into 235 passing yards and 105 running yards. The Pittsburgh Steelers scored 326 total yards of offense. That's 160 through the air and 166 on the ground. So we at least beat them out on the ground. We had more rushing yards than they did, but they had more passing yards than we did by a lot, and that put them over the top by about 14 total points. But still, the fact that not only did we beat them, but they beat us in total yardage, and that's been happening all season, is insane. I don't think there's a week that's gone by that we have exceeded the other team in total offensive yards, and we've won 5 of these games. So, if we could do this all the way to the Super Bowl, and if this wins us the Super Bowl, I don't know exactly where we go from there, because that would be an accomplishment in of itself. Passing yards, let's talk about that. Let's compare the 2 quarterbacks, because we've got the second-year rookie versus the second-game rookie, and there's just a very, very good comparison between these 2 guys. And by good, I mean you can see who I believe to be an excellent quarterback just in general, facing off against a good quarterback who, with good weapons, can be an excellent quarterback in Kenny Pickett. And I will say that. I don't think Kenny Pickett on his own is an elite quarterback. He's not a Tom Brady. I don't even think he's a Big Ben. He needs good weapons in order to be a good quarterback. He's more like Terry Bradshaw in that sense, whereas Will Levis is more like a Tom Brady. He can use the less active players, and if he doesn't have good weapons, he can still make stuff happen like that. And I think that really comes through in the stats. Will Levis on 39 attempts completed 22 completions, with a total of 262 passing yards and 1 interception. Kenny Pickett, on the other hand, on 30 attempts, scored 19 completions for 160 yards and a touchdown, but with no interceptions. And so that's why I say, like, we have the better weapons. Sure, they've got Derrick Henry and they've got DeAndre Hopkins. However, them going up against our defense is kind of a different story. Whereas the Titans don't have a great defense, and our weapons were able to put up some more points on less yardage because of that. I won't say the Titans have a bad defense. They have a decent defense, and it's not just like our weapons are good, but we also have the issue of the offensive line, and the play calling is not the greatest. Though this game it was less so, and with Kenny Pickett in, it looked better. But a lot of it came from 3-and-outs, and a lot of those 3-and-outs came from several completions for 2 or 3 yards, or several runs for 2 or 3 yards, followed by an incompletion, which ends up bolstering the numbers in the end. So yeah, I think in total, Kenny Pickett has a better completion to incompletion rating. I mean, he missed, 11 throws, whereas Will Levis missed like 15 or 16 throws. So Kenny Pickett is better in that regard. However, this is also just a one-game overview, so I don't know how they would do in the long run for any of this to happen. So that's about it. I think we did good. We didn't do great. I think we did enough to maybe beat the Packers, and we've got basically a mini bye week since we play on Sunday next week and we played Thursday today. So we'll be nice and rested up once we head off into Lambeau Stadium. I'm going to be streaming that game as always. And if you guys don't want to watch me stream the games, Tom Grossi is going to be streaming that game as well over on his channel. I would definitely recommend go checking him out. He's actually the reason that I started streaming games, because I just saw how much fun he had doing it, and I thought that I'd enjoy it, because I like talking about the football games as they're happening, and so far I have really enjoyed it. But if you guys do decide to come by on Sunday, it's going to be happening on this channel. We're going to be starting 15 minutes early, so we're going to be starting at 12:45 p.m., so in the afternoon. The game's kickoff starts at 1, and we're going to be streaming all the way to the end of the game. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Leave a comment. Let me know how you think the Steelers have been doing this season. Let me know if you think we're going to end the season with a winning record, or if maybe, something can change in the offensive coordinator. I didn't talk too much about Matt Canada today, but that's because he wasn't as bad as he normally is. Last thing I will say, I really want one of those brown hoodies that he was wearing. They just look so nice. I just don't have $100, so oh well. With that being said, I hope to see you guys next time, and go Steelers.
Here we go, Steelers.